Hi, this is son of TheHande, and today we're talking about the solo albums of Bruce Dickinson. Bruce Dickinson, of course, is the frontman for the heavy metal band Iron Maiden. To date, he's released 6 solo albums, most of them between his absence from the band is between 1993 and 1999, but one before he left and another one after he came back to Iron Maiden. I'm now gonna go through each of the albums and tell you a little bit about what I thought was great or not so great about them, and also grade them. Now, the first 5 albums, of course, are available as reissues that come with a bonus CD, that often come with a bonus CD or some kind of bonus tracks and features. But these are not gonna affect the actual score of I'm gonna give the individual albums, but I will mention what the different special stuff that comes with the albums are. And let's start off with Tattooed Millionaire. Now, it might interest you to know that Bruce Dickinson was offered the chance to make his first solo album when he wrote Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter for one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And the great irony, of course, is that the song itself never ended up on the first solo album. Instead, Bruce re-recorded a new version of it with Iron Maiden, which ironically became their only chart-topping single to date. The thing that's different about Tattooed Millionaire in comparison to the other Bruce Dickinson solo albums is its distinct 80s rock sound, which is very evident already in the title track, which is both a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it helps the album stand out in comparison to the slightly more darker later albums of Bruce's. However, some of the songs on the album can end up sounding really simplistic and even ridiculous, which is an unfortunate side effect of this genre. However, the album opens up with a really great hard rock and intro, Son of a Gun, which is by far the most epic song on the album. Born in '58 is a great lamenting rock number, and the album also has an excellent cover of All the Young Dudes. In fact, I even think it's better than the original. The rest of the songs are also okay. The only songs of the album that I really don't like are Dive, 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 Licking the Gun, and No Lies, which I felt was just really repetitive to listen to. So it's definitely a worthwhile album. It's not excellent, but I think I'm gonna still give it an encouraging grade of 3.5 out of 5. And the reissue is definitely worth getting if you want to hear the original version of Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, but the bonus disc also has a lot of other great tracks that you might want to listen to. Bruce's next solo album was Balls to Picasso, which came out in 1994, although he had originally started working on it already when he was still in Iron Maiden. The album didn't really start to materialize until Bruce teamed up with Roy Z, with whom he's written most of his later solo albums. And although Bruce and Roy Z have done a lot of great stuff together, I'm afraid Balls to Picasso is not their best effort together. It just seems to me that they were trying too hard to marry the sort of aggressive and dark guitar work of Roy Z's with Bruce's melodic and powerful voice, and for some reason it just didn't click together on Balls to Picasso quite yet. The album has some great songs, but I felt that all of these were the sort of songs that sort of deviated from the general style of the album. You've got a few really weird songs like Shoot All the Clowns and Laughing in the Hiding Bush, which are some of my favorites, especially Shoot All the Clowns because it's such an hilarious, over-the-top, but also a very catchy song. My favorite song off the album is actually Sacred Cowboys because of its message, and also because I felt that the chorus is also surprisingly catchy. And of course there's the wildly popular ballad Tears of the Dragon and also Change of Heart, and I always felt Bruce has always done the ballads surprisingly well. However, the rest of the album just doesn't feel very worthwhile, and that's why I'm only going to give it a grade of 2.5 out of 5. It's definitely my least favorite Bruce Dickinson album, but I'm going to have to say that the reissue is definitely worth getting. The bonus disc has a lot of tracks that were left out of the album that are, in my view, far more better than some of the ones that actually wound it up there. So if you want to get Balls to Picasso, definitely get the reissue. Next up we have Skunk Works. Now, Skunk Works was originally the name of a band that Bruce Dickinson wanted to sort of launch and to start a new phase in his solo career, but unfortunately the band only made this one album, and it is really a shame because Skunk Works is not only Bruce's most original sounding album, I think it's definitely his best. I mean, I was on board already with the first song, Space Race. The thing is, it's a heavy rock album, but one that has a very particular kind of sound, and it's really difficult for me to describe what it is about this album that makes it so awesome. One good aspect about it is that the songs are all very compact, and they have all the essential ingredients that you always feel. Listening to every single one of them is a rewarding experience. Inertia was my favorite song of the album. It feels like a metal anthem, but it feels like a new type of metal anthem. It's really hard to explain, and you have to really listen to it. Of course, if some of you are a little worried about the fact that you're hearing the stuff like different kind of sound, then you'll be happy to hear that there are some traditional rock-out heavy numbers, like Solar Confinement, that will cater to your taste if you're having a hard time getting into the style of the album. But it's the new kinds of interesting songs like Head Switch, Dream State, and I Will Not Accept the Truth that really define this album. Like I said, I really have difficulties expressing in words why I think this album is so great. It's not that every single song on the album is completely flawless and absolutely great, but the fact that the sound is such that it doesn't offend my ear. Not a single song on the album, even the couple of ones that I don't really care for, none of them sound so bad that I would want to skip them if I was just listening to the album. This one is definitely worth getting, and I cannot give this a lower score than a 5 out of 5. It's awesome, go check it out. Next up came Accident of Birth, and not only did Bruce Dickinson regroup with Roy Z, but also Adrian Smith, whose own solo career had not really taken off. Once again with Roy Z's entry, the songs became a lot more heavier for Accident of Birth, and again, I don't really think this entirely worked for the album. I mean, I can see what they were trying to do, but most of the songs are just really grating to listen to. However, I will give them credit. Dark Side of Aquarius and Taking the Queen are probably the most epic numbers of this album, and both are worth listening to, especially Taking the Queen, which has probably one of the best intros to any Bruce Dickinson solo song I know. Then there's two traditional rock numbers, The Magician and Road to Hell, and there's actually 3 songs that I would classify as being almost ballads, Man of Sorrows, Omega, and Arc of Space, all of which are great songs. But it's always felt to me that Accident of Birth really lacks a defining element that would make it entirely worthwhile. It's those songs that sort of deviate from the overall style of the album that are the most memorable. But it's not a bad album, so I really can't give it a lower score than a 3 out of 5. But I've always felt that Accident of Birth, again, didn't quite deliver what perhaps Bruce and Roy were attempting. Also, the reissue on this one isn't really worthwhile because all it contains is a bunch of demos of the songs on the actual album. The only thing that's even slightly interesting is that it has a Spanish version of Man of Sorrows, and that's about it. Next up, Chemical Wedding, and this I think is the album where Roy Z and Bruce Dickinson finally hit upon the correct balance for Bruce's singing and Roy's hard guitar sound. And it's perhaps because of the more uniform sound that the album itself comes off much more polished than Accident of Birth or Balls to Picasso. I especially love King and Crimson, the title song, and The Alchemist, which actually uses a reprise of Chemical Wedding at the very end. But it still does have a few slightly lighter songs like The Tower, although they are considerably heavier than any of the ballads on the previous albums. But of course there's a few not so great songs like The Killing Floor, but actually on The Killing Floor I would recommend checking out the music video for that one because it's actually pretty funny. And then we have the epic musical behemoth known as Book of Bell, which is definitely the highlight of the album. It is just incredible to listen to. The music, the instrumentation and everything, it's pretty awesome. You gotta check it out. Now the funny thing is, I actually hated Chemical Wedding when I first listened to it. I just had a hard time getting into the much darker sound of this album in comparison to some of the earlier Bruce Dickinson stuff. But it's definitely grown on me, and now I actually think it is one of his better albums. There's still a couple of songs on the album that I don't really care for, but on the overall, it is definitely worth getting, and I have to give this a grade of 4 out of 5. It is really good. Also, the reissue, it doesn't come with an extra CD, but instead it only has 3 bonus tracks that have been put onto the actual disc. So, getting either the original printing or the reissue, either one is good because it's really a good album. Now finally we're coming to Tyranny of Souls, and I really don't have a lot to say about it. It's a good album, definitely. And the reason it's good is because of the variety. It really brings together all of the best of Bruce Dickinson's solo work. You have traditional rock-out numbers, The Abduction, Power of the Sun. You have a really good acoustic ballad, I might say, Navigate the Seas of the Sun. Then you have some really cool elaborate stuff like Kill Devil Hill and Devil on a Hog, which both sound great. Billy Evil is really the only song on this album that I didn't really care for or thought it was really bad. The rest is pretty okay, and nothing really bad to say about this one, so I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5. I recommend checking that one out. And that's been this video. See you on the next one.